الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يتجدد لقاءنا بكم ويحلو الوصال، واليوم لقاء أكاديمي تنظمه مبادرة مساند وشركة أجنحة الخليج للخدمات التعليمية ضمن سلسلة خطوات ومهارات البحث العلمي، فحياكم الله جميعاً. مبادرة مساند تهدف لدعم ومساندة المبتعثين والمغتربين داخل وخارج بريطانيا عن طريق تقديم لقاءات ودورات واستشارات نفسية واجتماعية وأكاديمية. نرحب باستفساراتكم وأسئلتكم عن طريق حساباتنا على تويتر وانستقرام مساند UK، وإيميل مساند UK@gmail.com. لقاء اليوم مدته ساعة ونصف تقريبا، تقدمه ضيفتنا القديرة دكتور إيناس فيلمبان، أستاذ مساعد جامعة القرى، مدرس في معهد إنتو جامعة نيوكاسل، مؤسس شريك في شركة أجنحة الخليج للخدمات التعليمية، ومحدثتكم أحلام السلمي، قائدة مبادرة مساند وباحثة دكتوراه علم نفس جامعة نيوكاسل أكاديمية بجامعة جازان. حياك الله دكتورة إيناس، وتفضلي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، نبينا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. اللهم علمني ما ينفعني وانفعني بما علمتني وزدني علما. With you today is Enas Filimban. جزاها الله خير أستاذة أحلام السلمي. شكرا على تقديمك. I am a assistant professor at Al-Qura University, and I've also been a EAP teacher at INTO Newcastle University. And also I'm a research assistant with my supervisor at Newcastle University and a co-founder of Gulf Wings اللي هي الخدمات التعليمية زي ما تفضلت أختنا أحلام السلمي. قبل ما أبدأ هذه الدورة وهذا اللقاء، أحب أخص بالشكر مبادرة مساند متمثلة في العزيزة الغالية الأخت أحلام السلمي على ما بذلته وما تبذله من مجهود لكل ما تقدمه في هذه المنصة الرائعة. وبسم الله نبدأ. Now, in the beginning, there are a few points that I would like to note. First of all, this session and the upcoming ones, bi'idhnillah, will be in English. And the reason for that specifically is because the session is targeted to students that are and will be doing their studies abroad and are doing it in, for example, they're all doing it in English because they're studying abroad and require to know the terminology and المصطلحات التعليمية اللي that will help them to pursue their studies. The other thing is that I do hope that all of you will keep your mics muted and to deliver a productive session. Finally, if you have any questions during this session, I would be very happy to answer them. And if I'm not able to, you can just answer, write it down in the chat, or you can email me later on, and I will hopefully get back to you after the session. You can email. I'll give you my email in the end of the slides, and I will give you my details as well. Okay, so the first thing is that this whole topic, what research entails, today's session, is about research and what research entails in general. So today's session is going to be a general idea about what research is. And most of you may have already known all this information. Maybe you've gone past or halfway, or maybe you're almost completing your PhD or your master's. وبإذن الله what I want you to do is to take whatever you can and benefit from this session and hopefully help you throughout your research process. Hopefully by this session, I'll try to share my experience from being a research assistant and being a teacher at INTO Newcastle University. There are things that I've learned and some things that I've encountered that during the process of my PhD, I would like to share this experience. Okay, so during the studies, whether you are a student studying abroad, the first thing that you have to think about when writing a report, when writing research or a thesis or a dissertation, أول حاجة اللي هو what is the definition. So what is research in your idea? So theoretically speaking, it's a systematic investigation, gathering and analysis of information designed to develop or contribute to generalizable knowledge. دقيقة بس. عفواً. Sorry about that. Okay, during the lockdown, مبادرة مساند قامت بدورة في بداية اللوكداون عن دورة ألقتها أختنا الغالية دكتورة هيفاء العباد, and she talked about a systematic investigation. So a systematic investigation is تجميع المعلومات أو الأدبيات بطريقة منظمة وبطريقة عقلانية ناتجة من تطبيق منهج برهنة منهجية. So this is what it means, a systematic investigation, gathering an analysis of information, putting it all together in order to try to develop and come up with a generalizability or a generalization. So for example, ناخذ for example people. Somebody would say people who eat more get fat. Is this actually a right concept? Is that true? You have to have some certain kind of إثبات. لازم يكون عندك دليل. Okay, so going even more simpler, research is a systematic, again, لازم يكون متمم, لازم يكون منظم. So research is a systematic inquiry to describe, explain, and predict. أنت بتوصفي بتروح تقرأ كتاب or looking in research and articles to describe, explain, and predict. So this is what research is all about. Even more simpler, let's say a person who is studying science and wants to become, research more, to know more about something. So he says, I'm going to learn physics. So physics, you look at something in physics, for example, and you study it thoroughly. You go into more detail into that. The third one is scholarly or scientific investigation. Now, a scientific investigation, right now we are in the middle of a scientific investigation. Now, what is happening right now during the lockdown and we're here, it's all because of, COVID. So what is this? People are researching about it. إيش حكاية المرض هذا كيف بدأ? So this is what research is. It's a scholarly scientific investigation that people do. Simply, بكلمات بسيطة, it's just a way of finding out answers to questions. So this is the overall idea about what research is. It's a way of finding out answers to questions, simply, like asking why, what, how. And I chose these specific word questions for a reason. ليش اخترت الwhy والwhat والhow? Because إذا سألتك, for example, or إذا سألت أي أحد, when, you're going to give me a definitive answer زي for example متى لقاء اليوم؟ اللقاء اليوم حيكون الساعة 7 بتوقيت المملكة، 5 بتوقيت بريطانيا. Therefore, you're going to give me a definite answer. ما في أي نوع من التحليل، ما في أي نوع من الشرح. It's very specific. However, if you use the word why or what or how, you will give more information. So every time when you read something, when you look around, ask your questions or ask questions using why, what, and how. Now, the next thing is, where can we find ideas of research? من فين? Now everybody's thinking, okay, we can find it in books and libraries and so on. The first thing that comes in mind is everyday life. كل يوم نحن بنمشي, we're finding ideas of research. Even children, الأطفال الصغار نفسهم بيسألوا أسئلة. For example, واحد عمره 3 سنوات or سنتين, ليش ليش الحمام بيطير, for example. In this idea ما نقعد نقول للkids no, don't, لما تكبر تعرف or whatever. No, you have to encourage them. You have to give them the ways of how they can pursue research, even in a very small age. So we have to encourage them to search more. You have to give them the ability to go tell them, okay, why don't you look for the answer? And then الحين lots of very simple ways. You can go on Google, you can go online, and they have easy access to all of this information. Whereas I remember, Allah يذكره بالخير, والدي, when he was doing his PhD, they had a very, very difficult time in searching for articles or books. They have to look and go ويسافروا أماكن بعيدة عشان يتحصلوا على هذه المعلومات. Right now, it's a lot easy for them to do that. Another thing is experience. For example, معلمة لغة إنجليزية, okay, a teacher in a classroom, she saw a certain thing, okay, in the classroom. So she said, oh, this is a very interesting phenomenon that I found. How are those children improving? لاحظت إنه there is a certain aspect في طفل معين قدر يسوي بسبب منهجية معينة or something. So she wants to research it. This is all from what? From experience. A few days ago, a friend of mine posted something on Facebook. وحبيت إني أشارككم المشاركة اللي وضعها. Right now, at the moment, he said that التحصيل العلمي ليس العامل الوحيد اللي تأخذ الجامعات. Here in the UK, there was a friend of his حصل على الثانوية العامة ويبغى يكمل دراسته, ولكنه رفضوا إنهم يقبلوه لدراسة البكالوريوس, ولكن أخذوا بعين الاعتبار خبراته العلمية. So his experience was the thing that made him go into a master's degree, and طلبوا منه إنه يقدم ماجستير, وبالفعل خلص الماجستير ما شاء الله وبامتياز. So this is another thing, is through observation. So الobservation هنا وقفة تأمل. الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام من العبادة ومن كان يتأمل قبل 1400 سنة, كان يروح غار حراء وكذا. This is part of what? It's also part of research. كان بيبحث, كان he's trying to do things. So this is something also part of where you can find ideas. You can just observe around you, even in a classroom, even, for example, in everywhere you go, you can find ideas of research. Incidents that happen. Let's say, for example, what happened in Lebanon, the devastating explosion. All of this, if you come to think of it, why did it happen the way it did? ليش صار اللي صار؟ وكيف؟ وصاروا الناس يبحثوا عن معلومات عن أشياء. بيحاولوا إنه يلاقوا answers to the questions. Also problems. So for example, if you're in psychology, you have to look for problems. You have to look for around you. عشان يلاقوا نتيجة أو يبحثوا بالذات في علم النفس, for example, and not just علم النفس anywhere else. كل you know, the areas of discipline. So you look at a problem وتبغى تلاقي نتيجة لها, or a remedy or a solution. So all of these problems can also be part of research. Now, عندي مثال هنا. I want you to write in the chat. أتخيلوا معايا أنتوا دوبكم خارجين من العمل, okay? You came out of work and suddenly you were in the car. In the middle of the car, سيرة طويل قدامكم, and you start to think, what is it that's stopping me? What is the problem? What you know, I want to know what's wrong. Why is there a traffic jam? إيش الأشياء, إذا تقدروا تكتبوا في الشات عندكم, إيش الأشياء اللي عندكم, أو إيش الأفكار اللي ممكن, or what are your assumptions that would you think of that would allow this traffic jam? So if you can write in the chat, ممتاز. حادث سيارات, yes, excellent. نقطة تفتيش, very good, perfect. Any other? Yeah, عطل سيارة. Okay. Wonderful answers. Thank you very much. Okay, so you came up with what? You came up with predictions. You came up with assumptions. كل هذه الأشياء تعتبر مقترحات. What do we call this? Okay, so you gave me so many options. You gave me so many predictions. Exactly. Thank you very much, Abir. So this is called a hypothesis. اللي هي فرضية. Okay. أنا حاطة هنا لينك اللي حابب بعدين أنا حتاخدوا السلايدز إن شاء الله بإذن الله. If you look at the link over there, there's a research idea that one of the people thought about how to the best way of slicing a cake. Can you imagine? This is how you can think of. So nothing is impossible. You can think of ideas from around the world. So a link هذا video عن what is the better way to slice a cake, and it's based on math. Okay. Okay, so how can this hypothesis, هذه الفرضيات, become a scientific hypothesis? Okay, so the first of all, a hypothesis, أو الفرضية, is a suggested solution for an unexplained occurrence that does not fit into current accepted scientific theory. يعني إلى الآن هذه الفرضية لسه ما تناسبت مع النظرية العلمية الحالية. So we don't know, ما أثبتت علمياً. We don't know exactly whether it's true or not, okay? The second thing is that the basic idea of a hypothesis is that there is no predetermined outcome. What does that mean? It means إنه إلى الآن ما وجدت لها نتيجة. There's no results have came up from this hypothesis yet. So what do we have to do that? Exactly. So by making more research. So for a hypothesis to be termed as a scientific hypothesis, so it's, in order for it to be termed as that way, it has to be something that can be supported or refuted. طيب إيش معنات كلمة supported؟ يمكن قد اتطرقتوا على كلمة supported or refuted. Supported إنه تكون مدعومة ب some evidence. It's supposed to be supported by دراسات قد صارت قبل, or refuted أو ممتاز, إثبات أو ضحط. ممكن إنه إلى ما تثبت عدم صلاحيتها. How? This is through carefully crafted experimentation or observation. عن طريق التجارب and observation, then we could come up with something that is called falsifiability and testability. Now, I'll give you some examples of research. هذه فقط مجرد أبحاث ونشوف هل هذه do you think is, a possible research idea or not. Now look at this For a longer life, look on the bright side. هذه معلومة نحن كلنا نعرف. نقول يلا انظر للجانب الإيجابي. Okay, this is actually based on what? This is actually based on real research. Based on researchers in the Netherlands, they actually investigated the death rates among people who describe themselves as optimists and pessimists. So لما يجي واحد يقول لك okay, look on the bright side, or say يا شيخ بلا كلام فاضي. No, actually it is based on research. مثبت علميا. Out of 100 men and women aged between 65 to 85, they were enrolled to this investigation, and the results were that they were the persons or the people who were highly optimistic, اللي كانوا متفائلين وقالوا إنهم متفائلين, they actually lived longer. And the reference for that is from the Eastern Daily Press, quoted from Davies 2007. Another example of research, لو أحد سألكم, for example, الحرامية or burglars, why do they do why they do? ليش بيروحوا وبيسرقوا؟ ليش بيروحوا مثلا they go rob a bank or يسرقوا بيوت? Any ideas? Can you write in the chat? Give me some ideas why burglars do what they do. Why do they steal? Why do you think their intentions? كده أعطوني كده فكرة or some answers that you might think. Poverty, very good. I'll give you a few minutes. Very good. Steal because they're desperate. Okay, easy money. Yes, very good answers. Like, لو أحد قال لكم, okay, for example, if somebody told you that it's because the main idea is because of being poor, or which one would you think? Is it being poor or because of drug use? Okay, very good. سوء التربية. So you have given very good assumptions, and you've given very good predictions. Depression, yes. Okay, now based on the study that I'm going to show you right now, in a home office research survey, 70 burglars. Now they just took 70 burglars, okay? Look at the first reason, influence on friends. عشان كده الواحد لازم من جد يعني يحاول يعني الأصدقاء ينقيهم كده تنقية يعني, because this is one of the first reasons about how they can influence people. It's even more than funding drugs and more than buying luxuries and easy money and everything. Okay. Now, the researcher asks a question. Now, this is what I want you to focus on. This is what you should do. The researcher collects data. The researcher indicates how the data answered the question. So I am constantly repeating the researcher, the researcher, the researcher. Now, this is something that you need to focus on. I know it's easy. Sometimes it comes difficult when you're in the middle of studying and you have lots of things to do. So, you know, you start to say, يلا خليني أبغى أحد يجي يحاول يساعدني عشان, you know, collect the data and حخلي أحد تاني. So in the end of what you are going to do, you are the one who's going to be defended. عندك حتكوني مناقشة or حيكون حتساءلوا بعد كذا, how did you do the research? You have to know the end and the beginning, the end, within, how the data answered the question itself. So all of this, Allah يعينكم, but it's on أكتاف الresearcher. So he has to know every single detail that you are doing during the research process. So this research in general is a process that results in a product. What is this product? This product could be a thesis, it could be a dissertation, it could be a report, it could be also an article that you are writing, okay? So هذه النتيجة النهائية. It's a process. هي خطوات. في الأخير the whole thing is a product. What is this product? It's knowledge or information. This is what you are trying to compile. This is something that you are trying to gather information for this end product. The research results are answers to questions. So all of the questions that you put, they have to be very clear. And this is what the result is going to be. So if you have, for example, if you have an article, where do you look at? You look at in the end, okay? Sometimes you look at the questions that are raised from this research. The more you find questions, the better this research is. So good research actually raises new questions. Now, to sum up and agree with what research is, overall, research is a process of steps. هي خطوات that are used to collect and analyze information in order to increase our understanding of a topic. So you have a topic, a research topic. This is something general. And then the research is only the process. There are many steps that we have to do. وإن شاء الله بإذن الله نحن مسوين سلسلة للبحث العلمي, so how to conduct research and so on. And this is just the beginning or the introduction of the whole series. Now, how can we do this? How can we research? And how can you become a successful researcher? And the question, which is based on today's session, what does research entail? Yes. وأكيد lots of people around اللي درسوا واللي بيدرسوا, the first thing that comes into mind and everybody tells them is think critically. You have to write critically. You have to have some criticality. Okay, exactly. التفكير النقدي is very, very important when you write and you do your research. It's actually based on that. So what is it? It's a highly aware perspective. ولاحظوا perspective. لازم تكون عندكم نظرة متفتحة. You are open to all possibilities that tries to avoid fallacies. Oh, so okay, so what does avoid fallacies mean? It means that تحاولوا تتجنبوا المتناقضات. So when you write something, okay, when you write something, for example, ما يكون أثناء كتابتك something that would ينتقد كلامك اللي أنت كتبتيه. Everything has to be clear. You have to have the same rhythm, okay? So avoid fallacies, okay? Reveal assumptions. زي ما شفنا and we saw in previous when we talked about the traffic jam والزحمة اللي صارت وانتوا عطتوني lots of assumptions. Bring all the assumptions that you can think of in the research. That is how it becomes critical. Okay? وإن شاء الله بإذن الله حنعمل سيشن خاص للcritical writing بإذن الله حتوافيكم بأستاذة أحلام. Another point for critical thinking is adopting multiple views. لا تحددوا في one thing. You have to think about multiple views. Don't stick to one view and ignore the others. لا لازم تكونوا متفتحين, like and you have to know all of the views that are related to the question that you are questioning. And very important point is that you have to keep an open mind while questioning small questions. So all of this is that you have to be aware. هذا هو baseline. So you have to be aware of everything that you are writing about. So you are, as I said in one of the definitions, is that you need to study something thoroughly. That means you have to learn about it. You have to learn every single detail about your topic. Okay? So how do we develop these critical thinking skills? If we come to think about, okay, we have to, again, we have to define it. So critical thinking uses a special type of argument based on empirical evidence. So what do I mean by argument? Argument is a set of logically connected statements that start simple and then end up in a clear conclusion. إيش معناته? We have to give lots of ideas. We have to give assumptions, statements, and then لازم أشوف النقيض. Okay? النقيض بس مو عشان إني أناقض بعض. No, I want to see the other side and I have to debate. لازم أنا كمان مو بس أشوف جانب واحد، لازم أشوف الجانب الآخر عشان إيش؟ Exactly. Thank you very much for your suggestion. So you have to agree or disagree with your opinion. You have to know exactly the other side so you can defend it. Okay, and then you come up with a very clear conclusion عشان تكوني عشان تكونوا مستعدين على إنه okay, yes, I know this is going to happen, but I also know the other side. So you are, again, نرجع لنفس الفكرة اللي هي you have to be aware. So all of this based on what? لازم يكون عندكم based on empirical evidence. Actual events that is occurring in the world. ممكن يكون through observation. ممكن يكون عن طريق مثلا كتاب أو مرجع أو article came from direct or indirect observation. Okay, where can we find these evidence? Or what is the empirical evidence? The first thing is all of this, no matter what field of study, ممكن تكونوا science, ممكن تكونوا English, architecture, psychology, epistemology, whatever the field of study you are working in, if you are carrying out research into people's opinions, al-afkar, al-experiences, anything, al-behaviors, you will be following one of two distinct paths. Does anybody know which two distinct paths or data or evidence? You can write in the chat if you want. Exactly. Thank you very much, Afaf. It depends on the topic. Yes. Excellent. Thank you very much. So, quantitative data and qualitative data. So both of these, and we're going to talk about it briefly. وإن شاء الله بإذن الله هنعمل برضو sessions about this. Yes, I'm not a specialist in both of them, but I have done my research on both, and hopefully we'll find somebody that is a specialist to help you even further. But from the experience that I've found, quantitative data, qualitative data, both of them deliver useful and informative results when they are well done. But each serves a rather different purpose. كلكم عارفين هذا. What is quantitative data? And these, both of them, are methodological approaches. These are approaches, these are methods that you use for your research. اللي هو, as you said, كمي ونوعي. Quantitative, كمي, qualitative, نوعي. Okay? As I said, it's not specific to one field of study. Any field of study. Like, for example, I know a friend of mine, she was studying nursing here in Newcastle. And I honestly thought that she was, they use quantitative data. Suddenly I realized that she was doing a qualitative research, and it was really interesting to see that in nursing, and I thought it was something quantitative. So these methodological approaches, كمي or qualitative, so let's see the quantitative research. Generally, it starts with an experimental design, في تجربة, in which is based on a hypothesis. And then after that, it's followed by a quantification of data. تجمع الداتا رقميا, and then you make a numerical analysis. Okay, so يبدأ بشكل عام بتصميم تجربة, and then after that يتبع فيه الفرضيات. Okay, so it's done in different ways in different field of studies. هذا فقط بشكل عام بعد كده يتم إجراء بعض التحليلات الرقمية. مثال على ذلك: a study comparing student test results before and after an instructional treatment. Now, my PhD study was based on this. It's not a quantitative research. It can be together. You can use both methods together. You can use both datas together. Nothing is right or wrong, okay? And we're going to go into more detail in a bit. So my study was comparing students of a pre-test and then a post-test. وبعدين صار في instructional treatment in the middle عشان أشوف how effective is this software. So quantitative research. This is based on objective observation. What do I mean by that? إنه ما يكون في it's not biased. It's not judgmental. Okay, so you have numbers. أي أحد يقول لك something, they say it will be reliable. So it's focused on variables. متغيرات, for example, age or and these things. Okay, so the focus is on variables, and it's mostly focused on reliability. And when people do this type of research, there is going to be a separation between theory and data. And تعملوا data and you start to research it and so on. And then you see whether this data is confirming with the theory that is put forward in the beginning, okay? Now, this type of research, you can generalize if you have the right amount of generalization. So if you have a good amount of number of participants or a good amount of data, then let's say, for example, 2,000 or 1,000, it depends on for example, the field of study. So if you have a large amount, that means this can be generalized. ممكن يعمم if you have this amount. Okay, so how do we do this analysis? It's through statistical analysis. طبعا في tools كثيرة and a lot that could help you in the analysis. There's SPSS, there's R, and you can use Excel as well. Let's move on to qualitative research اللي هو الكمي النوعي. Okay, so generally this is not set up as experiments. The data cannot be easily quantified. Okay, you can't quantify it. Why? Because it's based on opinions, it's based on behaviors, observations. The analysis is somehow interpretive. You can put some interpretation in it based on the theory, for example. بدلاً من الأرقام, okay? So anything that you can see during the process, it could be an interview, it could be a questionnaire, it can even just by looking and observing and writing what you are looking at. So بشكل عام لا يتم إعدادها كتجارب. هي مجرد إنك تروح مثلاً session or تجمع الداتا, and then after that يعني لا يمكن تحديد البيانات بسهولة كمياً. وفي مجال للتفسيرات according to the theory والنظريات اللي محطوطة in this area. So an example of this is a diary. So the researcher ياخد معاه a notebook, okay, and goes to the place that he wants to do the research about, and then keeps track of her or his attitude, behavior. Let's say, for example, during a year long of a Japanese language course, and then you can see and start interpret كيف سوى, كيف اتطور, كيف how did he become better? What are the things that affected his behavior? So all of this is part of qualitative research. Now, what is this based on? As you saw before in the quantitative research, الأول في quantitative كان objective observation. بينما هنا it's cultural meanings. So that means you are going to put all of your experience Sometimes it's a little bit judgmental. This is why you have to be careful when you do qualitative research, because people will sometimes think that, oh, this is not reliable because it's all judgmental. But no, actually, there are some cultural meanings that you can find from this kind of research. This research or this type is focused on events, الأحداث اللي بتصير, the sessions that you are looking, the behaviors, the opinions. So what do I mean by authenticity? You are looking at raw data, okay? Observations that are very authentic. Single case studies ممكن تبنى بسبب البحث النوعي. So how is this based on? It's merging between theory and data, okay? So while you're interpreting, you have to base your writing or your research on what you have learned from your study. It's situational, which means it's based on a case by case, okay? And when you do an analysis of it, of course, this is just an example, which is a thematic analysis, but there are very different ways of doing a qualitative research study. Okay, so which method to use? Some scholars say that it isn't so much a question of the researcher deciding which route to go down. إيش قلنا من البداية? What is it, the thing that makes the method, or for you to choose which method? Again, it's based on the questions that you put forward. السؤال اللي أنت تضعه في البداية في ال research questions, this is what bases the idea of which method you use. أحيانا لما يكون عندكم أسئلة، هذه الأسئلة كلها هي اللي تقريبا بتجاوبكم إنه which method I should use. You can even use both methods. Nothing is right or wrong in research. You have to do whatever you can, as you said here in the chat, depending on your topic, exactly, depending on your field of study, what grounds are you writing, depending on the question, this is how you choose your method. So what kind of knowledge he or she is seeking to make? What are you trying to uncover? What are you trying to answer? Okay. So in a way, you have to keep in mind that different disciplines use different research emphasis. You can use both, you can use one. Supervisors in your field of study sometimes will give you some suggestions. They will also prepare you for the ground of, which part would fit your research. You have to have a stance if you want to do both, but they might give you some, suggestions based on objectives. For example, maybe based on a relevant framework. Okay. So don't let anyone come up and tell you, no, you used the wrong method. الطريقة اللي انت سويتيها ليش ما استخدمتي quantitative، ليه ما استخدمتي كمي، ليه ما استخدمتي نوعي. وطبعا كل الاقتراحات. Yes, I did say that you have to be open, but you also have to know that if you choose the method, for you, in your opinion, it is the right method. You can come up with another conclusion later on, but this can be another article that you can choose to do later on in future research. So be your own judge, and you can benefit from other experiences to improve. As I said before, you have to be open-minded. Now, الآن هأعرض لكم poll, okay? الحين أنا هنا أبغاكم إيش تسووا. I want you to look at these examples. عندنا quantitative وعندنا qualitative. عندنا 3 أمثلة. حجيكم الأسئلة بالعربي if you want the meaning of it. Now عندنا 1, 2, 3. I want you to choose which method do you think you would choose in these 3, okay? أول واحد بيتكلم عن child care, okay? So what are the patterns of violent behavior and collaborative behavior in a play group for children under 5s? This is a field of study in child development. My father's specialty. Number 2, consumer attitudes. For example, if you have men and women, what different factors influence when they want to buy a car, okay? which method would you choose? Would you choose a quantitative or a qualitative? أنا دحين بس بعطيكم المعاني عشان دحين حأعرض لكم poll أباكم أنتوا تضغطوا عليه وتقولوا لي إيش اللي أنتوا يعني ممكن أنتوا إذا you're doing something research as this, which one would you choose? The third one is language learning 3 months after using technology. الآن during a lockdown في كثير ناس تحولوا إلى online learning. What do teachers say about its effectiveness in the classroom? هل ممكن حتستخدموا are you going to use I'm just going to set up the poll. Just a second. Can you see my أحلام, can you put the poll please? أنا ماني عارفة فين
Okay.
Thank you. الحين أجيكم البول أضغطوا عليه when you see the questions. أستاذة أحلام عندك البول؟ ألف السلوك العنيف السلوك التعاوني في مجموعة اللعب للأطفال. Which one would you choose? إيش حتختاروا qualitative or qualitative or both? السؤال الثاني ما هي العوامل المختلفة التي تؤثر على الرجال والنساء في اختيارهم للسيارة؟ ف what would you choose in this part? That's wonderful. جزاكم الله خير. Great. So I'll just give you a few, another minute or two, just for everyone to complete the poll. And I'm going to show you the results in a bit. So we have 3 questions. Okay, great. Okay. It's almost halfway, so I think I'll give a little bit more time, just 1 minute. Thank you. Great, thank you. Okay, أنا كده هأنهي البول. يعني ما شاء الله الإجابات لسه almost 70%, so that's great. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to end the poll right now. Okay. أبغاكم تطالعوا في النتيجة النهائية. 9% chose quantitative, 44% qualitative, 47% both. Quantitative, 31%, and so on. Now, what I want you to show you, I really want you, to emphasize right now is that all of these 3 are acceptable. Nothing is no, an answer is yes or no, or whether this is a right or wrong way. all of them are acceptable. This is how simple research is. Okay? Okay, so are you on board and are you aware of what I'm trying to convey right here? Are you on message? Now, يمكن one of the hardest examples or the lessons that you are going to see is that whatever method you use, أي طريقة أو أي, whether it was data or whatever, you are not going to make a groundbreaking contribution to the subject. خلي هذا الشيء في بالكم. I know I'm not being pessimistic, ماني قاعدة أكون متشائمة, but this is not how it is. Sometimes أول ما تيجي, I want to find a topic that has not been done before. This is not what research is. It's not because you're not clever. It's just, that's not how research is. Even if it's scientific or reflective. Now, if we look at Newton or Archimedes or all of those people, the scientists, they did research. And then suddenly at some point during the research process, إيش صار? They came up these things even by chance sometimes, and sometimes through things because they were researching. They didn't think that, oh, from the beginning, I'm going to look for a groundbreaking contribution. No, that's not how it is. The thing that you really need to focus on, the thing that you really need to think about is what? Is originality. سواء جامعة بريطانية, سواء جامعة أمريكية or whatever, is focusing on originality. Remember when I said the researcher, they want to know that you did the work, that you have designed it. The work that you will do will have originality by the way you designed it. ممكن أنت تسوي or تستخدمي a certain kind of design في بحث because الارتكل اللي انت استخدمتيها او الدراسه اللي انت بنيتي دراستك عليها was in a different design. So you are using another design. This is original, okay? This is part of originality. Also, because you gathered original data. الداتا اللي صار في الارتكل اللي فات is different from your data. That is originality. And this is what you need to focus on. Also, the way you analyzed it. The way that you looked at it from your perspective, okay? And finally, how you write it up. So, الناس اللي قاعدين يقولوا, okay, I'm not going to give my research to anybody else. This is not helping. You have to have an open mind again, because what you're writing is unique on its own because of how you analyzed it, how you gathered the original data. It's going to be different either way. So the originality, that's what makes your research unique, okay? So this is the thing that makes it unique, of how you analyzed it, how you wrote it, الطريقة اللي انتو, الكتابة اللي انتو بتكتبوا فيها. This is how it makes it original. Now, I have a few steps that I want you to think about. 10 steps, hopefully to give you on off like a good start, okay? In order to start your research. أول واحد, yes, you need a supervisor. If you're doing your research, for example, في thesis, لل PhD, or even your master's, أول شيء, you have to assign yourself a supervisor. It's a professional researcher, يكون عنده خبرة, find that their work benefits from access to another person. ممكن هو يعطيكي اقتراحات, ممكن يعطيكي articles that can help you. So Allah يعينكم, بس supervisor is very difficult to find, whether if it's good or not. Sometimes even if you have a supervisor, maybe he wouldn't or she wouldn't help a lot, but still you need to have a supervisor. The other thing is, which is very important, is talking with your peers. Remember what I told you before when I said talking with your peers, اتكلموا مع أصحابكم, زملائكم في ال area of study in the university. Get some ideas. Be open for ideas, for assumptions. Talk with them. Talk with them about your topic. Tell them what your topic is about. لازم تذكروا بعضكم. تذكروا how important your research is. This can be done either by a class group. Sometimes here in the UK, they do some reading groups, okay? You can think about, for example, ideas to talk about. This is very important in the research process. Another thing is that you have to accept that criticisms may be useful. Yes, I'm not saying that somebody's going to tell you, no, you're doing this wrong or not. This is not criticism. Criticism is when you say, okay, do you know what? You can improve by self. So, اللي هو I don't know what kind of criticism, but something that can make you better. Okay, when you discuss with your supervisor or your colleagues, you should be prepared to invite appreciative remarks. Sometimes when you have a presentation and when you go to conferences, you have to accept the criticism. This will make you a better researcher. You also have to start out with a clear understanding of resource issues. What do I mean by that? You have to be realistic. You have to devote yourself to the project. لازم تكون you're aware بالنسبة للمناحة المادية. هل are you able to meet all of the deadlines and situations like limitations of time, money, logistics. This is what I mean about resource issues, because sometimes you need time for that. Don't firm up your plan too soon. Like إيش قصدي don't firm up your plan too soon. Don't commit yourself into وفي الأخير كده تقولوا إنه أوكي هذا هو التايتل وبس أنا ما حغير. No. You have to have an idea about how to shape the title, because during the project, lots of things will change. Even before you even began collecting your data. لأنه ideas come up by the time. So أنا بتكلم على إيش؟ على التايتل. ما بتكلم على research topic, it's different. research topic أنا بتكلم like for example أنا research topic عندي second language acquisition. بتكلم على language learning. Okay, هذا هو my research topic. But when I come specifically to my title, أتغير يمكن فوق 50 مرة. Okay, so don't firm up your plan too soon. I'm talking about the title. But you need to settle on a research topic. It's just what I told you right now, okay? So you have to focus on the idea about what you might do. Think about what could motivate you as a student. Choose the subjects that is close to your heart. لأنه أنت إذا كنتي PhD, you're going to probably live with this for many years to come. So you have to enjoy what you're doing. Even if you're really stuck, you have to try to find ways of how you can overcome this research topic that you're doing right at the moment. Okay, pre-plan your working system. You can do this gradually by settling your topic and methodology. So بعض researchers, what do? They keep a diary about what they're doing and what, in chronological order. If you like that idea, you should start it right away and so on. So kind of prioritize, think what you have. So you have to have a flexible chart that shows the progress. وهذا الشيء دائما هم بيسألوه هذا يعني it's صح, it's what is it 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 it's a seventh step, but you're going to see that it's going to be said again later on. So during a PhD process, إيش بيقولوا لكم بيطالبوكم after 1 year? They have to show a timeline. Are you on this timeline or not? Okay, the next one, the 8th one, is make sure you stick to the requirement of the course. Different courses employ different styles of research methods. فأحيانا حتى حكاية references لازم it should be compiled or comply with the school that you are writing to. So Newcastle University has follows a certain Harvard style. Okay, even in the research methods, ترى also even in the scientific, there are certain methods that is used different as social and so on. So the 9th one is plan your timetable. plan your timetable, stay in touch with your main textbooks because you don't want to dwell all over. Try to, during your project, you have to refer to your textbooks. Like, for example, if I'm focusing on generative grammar, let's say, نحو, for example. So I have to focus on that. I don't have to diverge. عشان يكون عندي مرجع أساسي أرجع له. Okay? And again, the last one is plan your timetable. You should put and draw a project timetable as soon as possible because صح, it might change, but at least you have this in front of you. Yes. Okay. The nature of research. Now, عندي هنا ثلاثة, or the first one is one part of research is a process of gathering data in a strictly manner. وهذه الطريقة is kind of like a process like, let's say, a journalist. هيقول دخلت مثلا, you know, a journal, بيقول له go away and research it. روح وشوف you know, this حدث, okay? So the end product of that data gathering process, هذا أثناء هو, you know, they're searching for the data. It may change along the time, okay? Based on reflection, interpretation, ممكن في ناس يقولوا كذا, هذا نوع من أنواع research, okay? The other kind of research is testing a hypothesis. So this may involve putting in place experimental practices, comparing them with controlled or current practices. This is what I did, for example, compare based on the hypothesis, whether it's true or not true. This is one type of research. The third one is a process of engaging in planned and unplanned interactions with or interventions. زي ما قلت لكم مثلا بحثي كان في intervention, في instructional material. كانوا بيدرسوا بطريقة معينة, جيت أنا وأعطيتهم دراسة يتبعوها, okay? So all of these three, now everyone who is doing research at the moment can relate at least with one of them. So you can put yourself in these one of the circles, okay? So this is what the nature of research overall, from what I have been saying. Now, after doing my research and being a part of a research assistant and teaching research and study skills into Newcastle University, during all of these years, I found that one of the most important things that you need to focus on is aim for the focus. You have to have a specific focus in order to get a clear idea of where the evidence is leading you, okay? لأنه أحياناً إيش بيصير? You are researching about something and suddenly you come up with different ideas from different articles. فجأة تلاقوا نفسكم اتشتتوا ورحتوا, you know, that side of the, you know, and you started to diverge. إيش اللي يرجع لكم? You have to have an aim or specific focus عشان ترجعوا, عشان يجركم again back to what you are actually doing. Another thing is that you need to do is ask good questions. Sometimes a question that you put forward, you know, might lead to not much information. So probably ask another question or maybe write it in a different way, okay? So a good question that you start with may evolve. وفجأة تلاقوا من good question هذه اللي انتوا اخترتوها can take a different shape in the course of your project, because simply, as I said from the beginning, from a good question, okay? That has lots of predictions and lots of assumptions and lots of ideas. And again, keep it simple. Because lots of people would think, oh, I want to add this in my project and I want to add that in my project. Keep it simple, because you are going to go into certain places and many students are encouraged to believe that كل ما كان methodological theories complex كل ما كان research أفضل. No. صدقوني, keeping it simple is the best way. Even لاحظت إنه some people would use like very difficult words in their research. وأنا بصحح for people that are going into masters and into they start to use these difficult words, and they think that using these words will give them a better mark or giving them a better weight in their research, and that is absolutely wrong. You have to know how إنكم توصلوا المعلومة للقارئ, and this is the baseline. So just keep it simple. The other thing is, don't try to do too much. Now, people who are coming into entry level, for example, want to explore too many questions. لازم تكوني عقلانية, لازم تكون realistic about the scale of what you can do in the time available, because of how you can draw these conclusions from the data you have gathered. And last but not least, which is the best, the cardinal virtue is patience. الصبر, الصبر, الصبر. Because at some time and in point during the research process, you might break, you might come up, you might say that I can't do it anymore. It's too much. Sabr. It will take you to, and the ending is wonderful in the end. So the end point. Now in the end point, I do want to say that always look at the bright side. Remember the first research example that I gave you? It will give you a longer life. So the same thing here. Always look at the bright side. And don't think that in the end of the research process حتقولوا يا الله هذا دحين كل اللي أنا سويته في ذي السنين كلها, and all of this is what I came up with, this is my findings. هذا ولا شيء. أنا كيف how am I going to defend the thesis? How am I going to بالله هذا يصلح للفايفا or whatever. I felt the same way, to be honest. But if you come to think about it as a brick, تخيلوا إنه هذا ال research that you have done is equivalent like a single brick in the wall of knowledge and understanding. As long as the brick has the right shape, استخدمتي كل الطرق, اتبعتي كل الخطوات, اتبعتوا كلكم كل الخطوات, and you've done every single thing in the book. For example, you have a methodology, you have a conclusion, you have this. That means you have the right ingredients, and all of these ingredients, كل هذه الأشياء properly baked ومحطوطة, perfectly laid. You should feel not disappointment, but actually you should feel very proud in a job well done. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Thank you very much, and thank you so much for listening.
الله يعطيك العافية دكتور إيناس، وجزاك الله ألف خير على اللقاء الممتاز. إذا في أسئلة للحضور يكتبوها بالشات. طبعا اليوم أول لقاء من لقاءات سلسلة البحث العلمي، وراح تكون على مدار 6 لقاءات بإذن الله تعالى، أعلنا عنها في حساباتنا.
الله يعطيكم العافية وانتم جزاكم الله خير. If you have any questions وإذا تبغوا أي سؤال، حطت لكم الاستفسارات. You can email me. برضو في Gulf Wings عندنا خدمات تعليمية. I can send you the form. We can help you. For example, if you need any one-to-one advice, coaching, or anything in research. هذا حسابي, إيميلي, feel free to answer, give me any questions. العفو، الله يعطيكم العافية، جزاكم الله خير. وشكرا أستاذة أحلام.
الله يعطيك ألف عافية. في سؤال في الشات، هناك فرق بين المنهجية والطرق والأساليب؟ أعتقد سؤال كان.
Yes. If you're talking about methodology وبتتكلموا عن ال framework, theoretical framework, yes في لأنه في طرق البحث is different from المنهجية. Okay. في something called epistemology. هذه أنا الصراحة ما طرقت فيها في بحثي لأنه it was not required، ولكن كل قسم عن قسم وكل field عن field يعني يفرق. في something called positivism و interpretivism and so on. So هذه لها بحر آخر في الريسيرش. ونعم في lots of people أحيانا the supervisors are more informative من هذه الناحية إنه that they can give you a possibility through choosing الميثودز. أحيانا الميثودز بتبين أي منهجية أنت ممكن تستخدميها. أحيانا يقولوا لك أوكي حتى لو أنت مستخدمة طريقة بحث معينة حيقول لك طب هذه بيس على إيش؟ على الأقل لازم يكون عندك جملة أو paragraph يبين أي منهجية أنت متبعتها whether it's positivism or interpretivism or constructivism and so on. فنعم فيها. بالنسبة للأسهل البحث النوعي الكمي ما في شيء أسهل وصعب صراحة. It needs hard work, all of them. So if you choose في شيء اسمه triangulation، في شيء اسمه you can use quantitative alone، وزي ما قلت ما في شيء صح وخطأ. It depends on the questions that you are answering. السؤال اللي أنت تحطه هو اللي يحدد أي طريقة بحث تتبعه. Okay. So هذه اللي حنتكلم عليه إن شاء الله بإذن الله في واحدة من السلسلة اللي process of conducting research. يعني في يوم حنخصص بإذن الله of talking about qualitative research in more depth. بالنسبة للجروب الخاص لطلاب الدكتوراه sometimes هو شوف every group in Newcastle University, for example, if you are studying, I'll tell you in my experience, if you are in linguistics department, there is a group that you can follow. There's a research group. Also for the education department, there is also a research group that you can, all the people who are doing the same topic, research topic, can get together and discuss. I know that my supervisor had something called كانت تسوي حاجة أظن كل أسبوعين أحد يعرض شغله، وهذه طريقة جدا ممتازة بحيث إنك you can see the other perspectives زي ما تطرقنا اليوم you know ideas, criticism، وكمان بيهيئكم for conferences عشان تزيل منكم الرهبة while you're talking. هل في الغالب تكون الأهداف objectives of research تصمم منهجية البحث؟ Yes, they can actually. إذا كان for example معظم ممكن يكون خاطئة. qualitative research دائما يأخذ أحيانا منهجية بحث interpretivism, okay, because it has lots of interpreting, okay. بينما some people would think constructivism أنا ماني عارفة بالضبط إيش هي الترجمة بالعربي. هذه ممكن تحليلية، لأنك أنت تأخذ something and then you start to construct it. فممكن بهذه الطريقة تستخدم both both ways of doing data, methods. You can use quantitative and qualitative. وفي الأخير هذا يسمى constructivism. طبعا في ناس يقولوا أول شيء تختار المنهجية بعدين الميثودز. أنا I'm not really supporting that, or I don't follow this idea. I feel like during the process of doing the research تطلع لي أفكار وأشياء and then هي هذه اللي بتحدد لي المنهجية في الأخير. يمكن أكون أنا ماشي بالمقلوب but وهذا برضو له علاقة في something called inductive و deductive، يعني شيء أحيانا تاخذ الثيوري قبل وبعد. هذا ممكن نتطرق له إن شاء الله بإذن الله when we do نتكلم عن ال research questions وكيف ممكن إحنا إيش ممكن أقول نحدد and focus our title. والله ما أعرف مكتوب هل بالإمكان وضع نظريات في البحث النوعي. إن هو ممكن يكون البحث النوعي based on نظرية معينة، وممكن أثناء الانترفيوز والquestionnaires لما you take the data ولما you gather the data sometimes you come up with other theories that have been done. So yes, بس مو أنت اللي تضع النظريات. It's based on النظريات الأخرى اللي قد صارت. أتمنى أنه جاوبت على هذا السؤال. أظن نفس السؤال ممكن التوصل لنظريات خلال البحث النوعي. نعم ممكن. زي ما قلت لكم هذا داخل في something called inductive and deductive في طريقتين. طيب في كثير ناس بيقولوا كيف أحمي فكرتي البحثية. Yes, فكرتك البحثية you can talk about it in general and everything, but sometimes there are certain things that you can do to keep it safe. Is I don't really know exactly, بس أنا أشوف إنه again الoriginality مهم. مهما سويت ومهما انسرقت فكرتك البحثية الشخص اللي حياخد فكرتك ممكن يستخدمها بطريقة أخرى، ممكن يحللها بطريقة أخرى، ممكن حتى طريقة الكتابة تكون مختلفة. حاجة بسيطة ممكن هي نفس الفكرة بس هو أخذها من منظور آخر. أوكي، فأنا ما أسميها سرقة. ممكن أخذ إنه أخذ فكرة شبيهة و something like that. إلهام واقتباس. yes.
طيب احنا وصلنا لنهاية لقائنا. تقولين كلمة أخيرة دكتور إيناس؟ تفضل.
الله يعطيك العافية وجزاك الله خير على المبادرة الجميلة في مبادرة مساند، والله يجعله في ميزان حسناتك إن شاء الله بإذن الله. ونتمنى بإذن الله إنه يكون أفدنا أو أخذتوا شيء بسيط من اللقاء اليوم.
الله يعطيك العافية، وإحنا سعيدين بتواجدك معنا، وكل الشكر لشركة أجنحة الخليج والشكر لك أيضا. طبعا اليوم أول لقاء، واللي أعتقد إن شاء الله راح نحدد آلية الحصول على الشهادة، لأن هي سلسلة من البحث العلمي على مدار 6 لقاءات. إن شاء الله بإذن الله راح نعلن عن آلية الحصول عليها في حساباتنا اللي وضعناها في الشات والإيميلات إن شاء الله. راح يكون عندنا دورة يوم 24 الاثنين القادم عن كتابة الليتريتشر ريفيو بإذن الله تعالى. تابعوا حساب مبادرة مساند، راح نضع التفاصيل الليلة بإذن الله تعالى. وشاكرين لك دكتور إيناس مرة أخرى، ونشكر حضورنا الكريم، ونستودعكم الله.
العفو.
نعمل اللقاء بكم مرة أخرى. شكرا لكم.